Another man done gone. Another man done gone from the county from another.
It's Jax.
man done gone.
What up, Dollars? Let's go.
Martin Luther had a dream, but Freddy Krueger had a Ruger. Ex-Malcolm out the picture, so now we back to the future. Now we back to these losers embracing death like they used to, poking out they chest. But listen, son, now you leaking that future. So who's the shooter? Is it your man? Or was it a fan? Or was it a stand? I would beg to differ. In hindsight, I bet you he say he was not a nigga. Plus Biggie Smalls was just minding his business, yo. Smoking an Optimo. Somebody got to drop the homie Biggie has got to go. And they couldn't stop it, no, I wish that they could. Yeah, the world needs change, but man, I wish that we would. So why the long frown? A man harmed from a 4 pound. His blood ripples on the floor from the war sound. His mama sitting at the wake, hoping the Lord's found. Another dead, another gone now. Damn.
Another man done gone. Another man done gone from the county from another man done gone.
George Eliot said that it's best to be what you wanna be. Fucking do what you wanna do, so I do what I wanna do. Bet you did it to floss. Bitch, I did what I wanted. Bet you did it and lost. Bitch, I did it and won it. Shit, I'm never coming back. Listen, I just wanna rap. Gee, I told you all of that. On about a dozen tracks. I don't give a fuck. I just wanna rap. Spitting fire on this track like a fucking thundercat. Plus this mic is bleeding rojo. This shit is a no-no. Rolling in that low-low. Plus I'm from that Baltimore. Need a folk, smoking on my logo. Ready for the walk, and we so silly with the flow. Somebody got a ropo. Heard the lames, and I swear they so too much love for the fame just to go broke. You said think I had the rap game in the chokehold. Never think I got the whole world in a rope. Gotta think, damn dog, you crazy. Is he the next Jay-Z? My crystal ball is hazy, but I don't know, maybe.
Welcome back to the Insanity Check podcast. This is your host, Chris, here on your weekly show on the MTR Network. And joining me is somebody who I love having her on because it's always just literally, no pun intended, a joy. I have from Sunday Civics, Eldroy Williams. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on?
Good to have you on here. It like I said, you've been kind of busy, kind of busy. You get married in a couple weeks.
Oh my God.
How's that going?
Every couple of days I have another freak out. And it's an irrational freak out at that. And the thing is, like, I know it's that's the most troubling part, is that I know it's irrational, yet I cannot stop myself from the freak out. Like, today is 14 days away. 14 days, Chris, in 14 days. Okay, but I have a different thing. It all starts from, and so Miles is to blame, and I know he's going to listen to this, and so I'm going to blame him. He's to blame because he started out first by telling me that so he wants me to ship my dress, because he's like, with everything going on, whenever you should ship it, and I'm like, hell no, it's going to be my carry-on. Like, if anything, I need this dress. I want it in my possession the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. So he's told me from the day I told him I was bringing it as my carry-on, he's like, all right, you're going to leave it on the plane. Who would say that?
A guy.
Who would say that?
A guy would.
And so then I keep having random dreams that I leave it on the plane, and that the plane flew to Madagascar, and so they can't get it back in time. And then the other time, and don't ask me why the plane would fly to Puerto Rico and then fly to Madagascar, but that was my irrational freak out. I had another one that the plane went back to its original, I don't know, in Atlanta. I don't know what airline we're whatever. And that, like, no one could get the plane because it's being serviced. And, like, then I couldn't get like, all kinds of irrational things.
You're saying irrational, but again, it's getting married. I'm speaking to somebody who is not married. Does seem like a huge commitment, and you're doing you're going out of the country. You're trying to get we're going to talk about this in a minute. This is going to be a good point. I really want to talk about your show. You got your show going that you're launching. Like you did the thing that I did, where I decided to get a new job and redesign and relaunch my entire site at the same time. Except you decided to launch this really, really great show, then also commit to somebody for the rest of your life and getting married out of the country.
Let me be clear. Like, I don't, this is the thing, is I don't have, none of my anxiety has anything to do with the commitment or marrying Miles, or I don't have any irrational fear like he's not going to show up or he's not going to say I do. Although I did tease him to try to get back at him and tried to do the Trump tease. And he's like, because I was telling him I was having anxiety. He was like, why? Of like, marrying me? Or I was like, no. He was like, oh, I thought you were going to say like you didn't know what you were going to say, if asked, whether you're going to say I do or not. I was like, I don't know. You're going to be very, very surprised at the answer.
we have big things going on. We're going to have the biggest crowds, and you just have to wait and see, Wait
and see what's going to happen. But so I don't have any anxiety about that. Right? The anxiety is about the production of the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. And that's what I mean. Like, we're going to talk about it because of your show, and I can see, like, you're kind of like me where you kind of I don't want to say overthink, because I think that doesn't do us enough credit. Because it's just, it needs to be right.
My one of my cousins calls it smart kid syndrome. so this is why he says that all your life, all of our lives, you've been told like you're the smart kid or you're exceptional and sort of all that kind of stuff, and people didn't realize how much one, pressure that puts on you, and then two, then how much pressure you put on yourself, and how therefore you went like overboard into preparing for things because people expected you to be exceptional, and not realizing that to be exceptional, you have to put in all of this work and all of this thing or whatever, right? So people, and in your mind, and this is so very true for me, what people think is brilliant and exceptional to me is basic. Mm-hmm. And and Miles now gets to like be present for like my process and things like that, or if I'm even when I'm working on a client, like I've worked with candidates and stuff before, and one of my good friends who's a state senator tells me all the time, he's like, you have to remember what you think is basic, and like you put in 10% and not even your half or 75% is great for us, right? And so like you just put all of this pressure and stuff on yourself, and like it's on the one hand you don't need to, but on the other hand that's what makes you who you are, and so yes, so when I do an episode, when I'm researching a topic, when I'm doing the show, like I'm learning every aspect of things. I'm talking, Chris, to someone later today who is a film person for the WWE to understand how I can possibly light my videos better. Who does that?
You do. So look, guys. So Sunday Civics. You're 3 episodes, and I know we were just talking about that. You're actually more because you had some problems with your feed. Subscribe to Sunday Civics, and we're gonna get into some more details here. But I got to tell you guys. So I've talked to Eljoy about this show, and she was like, I'm thinking about doing this and need some advice. And we had a call. I think we either 1 or 2 calls where you asked him some questions about the equipment you need, and we're gonna get into your little mansplaining story later on, because that's fucking hilarious. But like you asked all these questions, you were all worried about it. I think the last time we talked, because I did a little interview for your show last week, and you told me about how you were at one point were trying to edit out the ums, and I was like, please, if I did that, there'd be no fucking show. But and at that point, I had downloaded your shows and I've been subscribed, but I hadn't really listened yet. But I'd seen some of the clips, and I'm like, she keeps acting like, there's a sound quality issue, or she's not like it's not good enough. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm going, I don't believe any of this stuff that she's telling me right now. I think that it's probably fine, and she's freaking out. So I'm listening to the episodes today, right?
Which episode?
So today I went on a run and I listened to the third episode.
Okay.
So and it's funny about that one because so June is on there and you guys are talking about the sound quality in that episode, and I'm just like, this sound quality is better than like the first 5 years of the Insanity Check. Like, are you kidding me, ma'am? Like I still struggle with like. You guys sound like you were in the studio. It sounded like fine. The levels are okay. Like, I'm like, ma'am, there's nothing wrong with this episode. Granted, I am not the stickler for sound that other people are, but I'm struggling. Like, as I'm running, going, I hear everything going on here. There's no problems here. Like, it sounds good. Even the transitions between when you transition into doing the interviews, like all that stuff's there. You put the advertisement in and you fade this sound in. Like, man, this is great. Like, what are you talking about? So no, man, like it's like your quality on these things are well, and I know you're putting in way too much work. I know you're stressing yourself over this, but as somebody who has been podcasting for a long time, ma'am, you are far ahead of most other people. So
Well, thank you. I'm trying. I'm definitely, you and I made the mistake. So I started a Patreon for the show, and those of you who may be listening, I know that Chris had mentioned before, and I thank you for it, like suggesting to people to become a Civic patron, and I appreciate that. I have to look and see if there's any crossover, 'cause I really appreciate those of you who have donated thus far. And I was able to start, like building the equipment. And then also Elon became a Civic patron. He just did like a, one time, donation kind of thing. And, I was able to get the camera. And, we were in the store, Miles and I were in the store because I go to like Best Buy and Micro Center. Like that's my Sephora. So most people, imagine girls going to get like makeup and stuff like that. Want to get tech stuff. So, we're in Micro Center.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Camera. Yeah, they had to just deal on this camera. So I ended up getting a camera, but it turns out it's the Canon T6, not the T6i. So it doesn't have an external mic. So then I have to do like the editing of like syncing up the audio. Like if I'm doing in a different, environment, like I record audio separately with like my lavaliers and things like that. And I have to sync up the sound and like all this stuff when we're learning how to do that. So I have to do like huge claps or like something on the sound so I can see it in order to line the things up appropriately. But, just like now I'm just like making those kinds of, what I'm considering like huge mistakes that other people are just like, it's fine.
Oh, it's not even a huge mistake.
Voice memos on their phone, like it's cool.
Listen, the singing of the audio is what we do when we go to I will be doing that next week. So usually we record our audio separate from the video we do, and we sync it up later. And yes, it can be annoying. And here's the thing: so what we do, because we usually don't have we do it even for roundtable interviews. So there is no cue. So it's literally us, Vietnam and I, will crank up the audio in the editor, and then we're literally looking to match up the valleys and peaks of of the wave files and doing it that way. We do a pretty good job, but yeah, we usually don't have any cue, or we'll find some way of making a cue that let's say the talent drinks from a cup of water at that point. We'll use that as a cue and then try to work the audio around that part. So yeah, trust me, you're basically doing the same thing everybody else does. So it's not. There is no what I found is there is no easy way. There's no easy way to do podcasting, and honestly, we say podcasting, but it's really, it's being independent media. There's no easy way of doing it. You're basically doing the same thing the larger sites do, the larger outlets do. They just have a team and maybe better equipment. It's the same thing though. It's the same amount of work. The prep work that goes into it, it is absolutely the same thing there. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because like I said, with this, you hit me up on Twitter about it, and then you happened to mention it at the beginning of the episode. And I love how you do the beginning of the episode where it's just you and June talking to start the episode, and you brought up the what happened to you when you got mansplained when you try to get some podcast equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were you went in, you had your list of cords you needed to get, but because you're a woman, no way that list could be right.
Fast cords from the first time,
right?
Because I went back to the store, to get them. I left them at home and didn't. And so now, whatever. I'm still mad. But so what Chris is referring to is I listen. I do my research, okay? So I know I've looked online. I also have basic knowledge about. I can build a speaker from scratch. Okay, so I have basic knowledge of how audio and most technology works. I used to build computers. That was
and just so you know, that's not basic. Hobby. All right, you're down some of that stuff because I've worked on stuff like that. That's not basic. Most people don't know how to do that. So you're an advanced. Let's be honest. You're an advanced user here.
Okay. All right. I mean, I learned it in school. I'm sad if kids today don't have this in school. I took shop. I took I took all of this stuff or whatever in high school, and so I know the basics, right, of how things
right.
work and how you put things together. So that combined with doing research online about my most trickiest thing was the mix minus. For the podcasting. So how could I use the soundboard and use the sound or whatever and be able to have this quality, have you hear what I'm saying but you not be able to hear yourself, right? So I just had, trouble doing that between, online and figuring out cables. I was like, okay, this is what I need. And I go to the store and I tell the guy, I need these cables. And he's like, what are you trying to do?
First mistake.
Right. Because
first mistake.
Because if I walk up to you into a store this is not just Best Buy Basic or whatever. This is a store that is specifically for audio visual technology. People who go here are also MSNBC editors and stuff like that, who are going to a counter and give me this cable, this cable, this cable. You're supposed to give it to the person, and you walk away, you're done. Your transaction is done. That's not what happened. Walk up, take my my index card. I need these cables. What are you trying to do? Eljoy responds. So I was like, I'm setting up a mix minus, for my pass. Oh, I know what you need. Even before I could.
Second mistake.
And then I proceeded to watch him use the computer to figure out, and he's talking to himself, figuring out, he's like, okay, put the audio, the X out this way. So he's figuring it out in his head, and the person in the internal Eljoy is like, didn't I just tell him what I do? I did this process already. Why are we still standing here? Literally, that is what my inside was like. Why are we still standing here? We know what we need. What is happening? No, maybe he know. And he was like, and then I said, well, no, I have it here. And then I tried to show him my list on my index card and show him on my phone where I got it from, which is this guy's YouTube channel that I guess he's a audio tech guy or whatever, and he was doing the tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
So he puts his hands out. No, I know what you need. These guys come to me to figure out what they need.
Oh my God.
Talking about the guy on the YouTube channel.
Oh God. Well, obviously, if he comes to you, he's already done the video. Is he saying? Are you saying the video is wrong now? Are you? You know what got me about this when you told the story is and I thought it was a very prevalent thing for this is how you were talking about how you didn't say anything, you're internally you're screaming what is going on here, but you just let this guy guide you down this path, right? And I know that. First of all, in these types of environments with these stores and things like that, they do this with women all the time. First, you hear these horror stories. They do the same thing with auto shops, right? There's assume, oh, you're a woman, you don't know anything about your car. I'm gonna tell you what you need to do, and I'm gonna do this. But as I told you this, I found myself in that position sometimes too, right? Where it's like, what is this guy doing? Why am I? But I know what I need. And you walk out the store and you're like, how did this happen?
Right.
How did I let that happen? Like, and you're mad at yourself, but like it's
not so much. I mean, yes, you're mad at that person, but you're also that just like you knew, and particularly you're in like while it's happening, it's like an out of body experience, right? While it's happening, your internal is like, what the hell are we doing?
Right.
Why are we still standing here? Joy, go to someone else and get the cords you need so we can go. Like, literally, that's the kind of conversation you're having with yourself.
Yeah, but it's true, and you start questioning. Like, what gets me about it is you always start questioning yourself. Like, well, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And it doesn't matter how much research you put in, how much work you put into doing it. It's always come down to, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't know what I was doing. Maybe I didn't know. And then you come out and you find out, you're like, no, fuck, I did. I was right. This person was wrong. I should have listened. Yeah. But it's an interesting thing that happens. I call it the deer in the headlights syndrome, where you're just like, you're just stuck there. You're frozen. It's just, yeah, like when you were talking about that stuff, it got me about I've been there. You go with the flow. You're like, well, maybe this person sounds like he knows what he's talking about, even though, man, I got this list though. Watch
him figure it out. It was like, you already have this figured out. Like, why? Like, why are you watching him do the process you already went through and know what you need? Right. And he ended up giving you something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the entire time you're going, oh, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and then you get through all of it, and you're just like, no, fuck, I was right. And sometimes you know what it is. It's like you also don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person that tells somebody else how to do their job. And you're like, well, it is your job. Maybe you do know, and then you find out, oh no, you really don't know what you're talking about.
Sometimes it just, I know. Mm-hmm. It's okay to know.
Yeah, it's just one of the. This is why I honestly, and I think so. Your solution to this was then to just do what I do now, which is you buy everything online now, and then you buy it online, and then you just go and pick it up, and so you don't actually talk to the people there.
Although so I bought it online, to go pick it up, and then who decides to come with me?
Oh yeah, Miles. Yeah, no, this is a great story. I love this.
He wanted to come because he wanted to see if the guy was there, so he could go with the same thing, like with the, like, I need these scores, and see how he would behave. And he's like, and if he's there, and I tell him what I need, and he gives it to me, just me, he's like, I'm gonna say, well, why the hell didn't you do that when my wife came?
It's a good man. That's a good man there. No, that's real. That's real. That's legit. Yeah. Good for him. He should do that. Like, I mean, honestly, it's one of the things that, yeah.
I came home and I was like, well, I got, and I'm telling him about it, and he was like, what? Why would you? What? Oh gosh, it was too. Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah, no, it's like, this is why when I go into these stores now, I like I said, I either buy it on the store and pick it up, or I just go in and I don't answer any questions. Like I did an impulse buy this week and bought a new tablet. Mm-hmm. So I went in, already knew what I wanted. I just came in, look, do you have this one? I need this one, this size. Just, that's what I want. Well, do you want to buy? Nope, don't want it. I just tell them no for everything. Just like, most times when I walk into Best Buy anyway, they'll come up and go, can I help you? And my first answer to them is no. And I hate to be that guy, but it's usually no for multiple reasons. One, because normally they can't help me. And then two, I'm usually there to see if I can find it cheaper on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's usually what I'm there for. And I know they do price match, but I don't care.
Yeah, we just talked about that. We were in Best Buy, by the way, and we were looking at stuff, and it's a habit of ours now where we just look and you just, pick up. And now Amazon, Amazon also has the barcode scanner on the app where you can just scan an item that you're looking at in the store and it'll pull up So you don't even have to search, like you just scan the barcode
Mm-hmm.
and it brings up the item itself and tells you or whatever. And we do that all the time.
Yeah.
There was a big story recently about that, about from a retail perspective, that people mostly come into physical stores to see the item, to test it out and things like that, and then they just buy it online.
Yeah. Look. The only reason why I bought the tablet at Best Buy is because I realized I only like saved $1 with Amazon. So I was like, oh
Mhm.
fuck it, I'll just get it now. Then I don't have to wait a day to get it because
Mhm.
Amazon does like next day shipping on some of these things or
Right.
next day delivery on some of these things. So that's the only reason why I got it there. Like sometimes on and I'll use it for one, the price, and like again, so you can get your physical hands on it to see if it's really what you want. It's like you go into these stores to kind of like dressing rooms. You know,
Yep.
you try it on, you try it around, see if you really want it. It's like, oh, okay, you know what, I do want this. Then you buy it,
Yeah.
and because I found, and this is my other problem with Best Buy. Sometimes the device they have out, particularly for electronic like TVs, the TV they have, the price they have it for, you can find the next model up for the same price online.
Yeah.
And
Or you can go to when we were in Micro Center, for some reason Micro Center, and this is not an endorsement, it's not like they take an ad out for me or nothing. But like they have like HD 4K HD TVs for like really cheap for some odd reason. I was like, did y'all get like all of y'all like stuff off of a truck or something? I was
yeah,
like,
and
how is a 50-inch 4K HD TV 250
and that's
from
that,
Samsung?
and that's another reason why
Like,
I go in there and I I go to Amazon, put that in there, and you find out it's got 2 stars on Amazon. You're like, oh, that's how.
right.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't fall for that shit. Not falling for that at all. But that's the funny thing. So, Amazon's is trying to get their brick and mortar stores going, right? So apparently they have a patent for some kind of a blocker for like Wi-Fi, so you can't do price matching or you can't price check in the Amazon store. And I was like, oh, so you don't want your technology used against you guys that you've used against other stores. I'm like, well played. Like I can't even be mad at them for that. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Hey, listen. Hey, look. You basically pulling the 50 Cent on him. You just like you get mad. 50 Cent got mad at Ja Rule for singing, and then when he got Ja Rule out of the game, what did he start doing? Started singing on track. Okay, Amazon, do your 50 Cent. Pull your 50 Cent. That's hey, do what you got to do. Before we go into like I said, talking about some of the stuff that you've been talking about Sunday Civics, I just got to say, I love when June and you have your little discussion at the beginning of the show. You know what, and you know what she reminds me of? It sounds like you remember on a Key and Peele where they had Luther being the translator for Obama. That's what she sounds like for you, and it's not on some she's an angry black woman thing. Just that she keeps it so real. Like you'll be trying to keep like, well, and and she's just going, why are you doing that? Why didn't you just tell him? It's like, oh, we would have had an incident if I was there. It's like I can see that that's probably what you were internally thinking, but you're not going to say it out loud. But she's just like, I don't care, I'm going to say it.
Yeah. And and then she does that. That's not just banter on the show. She also does that like in person in real life. So, I mean, and so I can turn it on in terms of being engaged and talking to people, but so her and the two interns, we did this marathon day. We did, I think, 4 interviews back to back, crisscrossing the city, doing 4 interviews. We're doing an episode on identity politics, and what that means, and the historical context of it, and what it means and things like that. We're going back, dialing it back, because we did get some questions about like what the difference of civic engagement, civic participation, and sort of civic life is, right? Because some people think civic engagement is like picking up litter off the highway and out of parks, which that is civic life and be in terms of like a better community, but it's not civic engagement. So we're doing 2 episodes on that, and so we're crisscrossing the 2 interns, which wait till you hear the episode with them too on it.
I can't wait.
And June just like in person, like talking up a cab driver, got him to turn the meter off. Uh, just like got the man married off, and then he was talking about he can't get married because he cheating. She was like, yeah, we don't need to marry you to nobody. Like there was ordeal. So that is who June is. That is not a character. That is June.
No, but I think it's a great way to
And
start because it it really does feel like two friends just chatting it up, and then you go into your interviews. It's a perfect way to set the show.
yeah. And and it's to break up or like ease people in, because some of the comments, and I was taking it as negative at first, and then June and Miles were telling me not to think of that way. But some of the first comments that we got from people listening to the show was that they couldn't listen to it while doing anything else. That it felt like they were in school, or it felt like they had to take notes, and it was the information was just too much and too heavy. And so I thought those were negative comments.
Mm-hmm.
And then June and them were like, no, no, that means, I guess, that I'm really giving people information through the interviews and the conversation. But I was taking it as negative at first, particularly with the economy episode, because we asked the two economists that's the episode you just listened
Yeah.
to, right?
Mm-hmm.
We told them that we only needed 20 to 30 minutes of their time.
Mm-hmm. No.
They kept talking.
What was so great about that is you really need that. I think you asked like the beginning question, and they
Yeah.
took it from there. You
They just,
just
and
sit
that's
back and let them talk.
first episode, the interviews with Dr. Young on education
Mm-hmm.
and Rudy, the president of Medgar Evers College. Like for the most part, I asked them, definitely with Dr. Young, I asked him one question and he just kept going.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the economist. And so it's like, this knack of like finding people who just want to give this information. And I have this wish list of people, and June being who she is, like I don't know how she's finding people. But for this first Civic Action series, I was like, I wanted a mix. I wanted like my favorite podcast host. So that's why starts with it's you, Rod and Karen. One of my favorite podcasts is the Bowery Boys. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
And so contacting them, and I was telling her, I was like, you even need to get people who you wouldn't think, because I'm asking you the question on what's your first civic action, or what your view of civic participation is. And I mentioned to her Charlemagne. And so even her and the interns were like, what? And I was like, no. I was like, you want to get people who, like, they could be in different walks of life, but everybody has a role in civic. We're supposed to be a self-governing body, right? So then that means everybody has a role in self-governance, right? And so she found his management, and so far everybody that she asked has not said no, even Ava DuVernay.
Oh well. Okay. So now you're hey, listen. So you almost lost me on the Charlemagne thing, but now you got me back. I'm just like, okay. And since you're working on that, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say, which
What?
might have been along the lines of, did you have to define what civic action was to Charlemagne?
Well, I don't, their response was that he's very excited, but it would have to be in the fall. We
Mm-hmm.
also asked the former state attorney, Pret, I can never say his last name correctly. He's going to have to correct me on whatever. And everybody, they were like the fall.
Yeah. Yeah. The summertime is usually kind
Um,
of hard for some people.
yeah.
Sometimes.
But for some people, I may have to define. I mean, already there have been people we've interviewed or talked to, and they've said their first civic action, and I'm like, and then I say, define what civic action is, and then I'm like, okay, wait, let me tell the story again. Like, because
Yeah.
they're correcting themselves, and it's really because people have a different. One, because the idea of civics and self governance is not something you're not taught it that way, right? You're not taught that you need to know. You're taught the three branches, and this is how things are supposed to work. This is how the framers of the Constitution, and not that you need to know these things as principles and pillars, because you are supposed to be a participant in the republic, in the democracy, in government, right? So if you're taught with the intent that you have a voice, a say-so, and an active role, right, then the frame is different. The thought process is different. Even when I teach this to high school students or to even, grown folks, and teach it in a way that says that you have an active role in a say-so, right? And not that this is something that just happens to you. It's a different thought process. So even as people, I have this ongoing conversation with some of my Black liberation folks, right? And it's a conversation right now that often peaks up on Twitter, talking about abolishing the police, right? You ever seen, that conversation pop up? And most people are like, well, because they don't have a concept of what does public safety look like without the police, they are hesitant, even other Black folks, and even sometimes myself, of what does it mean to abolish the police in its current existence? How does public safety operate without that force? But if we're taught that right now we don't fully operate in our space of having a say so over how we are policed, right? We accept that this is the role that police have, and therefore the only thing that we're asking for is for them to not kill us as often. But if you change the conversation in that we as citizens, as the people who pay their salaries, as the people who, the citizens they are supposed to protect and serve, are no longer comfortable and no longer accept the way policing is done, that's a different conversation. And so then it becomes, then how do we change the how do we change the concept of policing that it is more equitable across communities, across states, and that it reduces the ability for this force to inflict harm on quote innocent citizens. Right? It's a different conversation if you're taught it that way.
This episode is sponsored by the good folks over at tweakedaudio.com. Tweaked Audio has been a great partner to the MTR network over the years, and they have a great product. If you listen to this show, then clearly you use headphones. Unless you're one of those assholes on public transportation blasting music over a speakerphone. Don't be that person. Pick up a pair of earbuds or headphones from Tweaked Audio. They have over-the-ear headphones as well as various types of earbuds in different colors. And now they have a great pair of affordable Bluetooth earbuds that are perfect for working out and listening to us, your favorite podcast. At checkout, put the code REVIEWS in to get 30% off, free shipping, and free lifetime warranty. So check out tweakedaudio.com. Help yourself with a new pair of headphones and help us out as well. Now, back to the show. I think this is why I like what you're doing with Sunday Civics so much is, and we'll start getting into some of the topics you've been covering. So many times the noise that you get online is black and white, right? And I don't mean like ethnic colors. I just mean in, ones and zeros is binary, right? It's like, people are like, well, they're asking, right. It's, we need to eliminate the police. And then people are going, but like, what happens if, I get robbed? And so there's never any actual conversation to bridge that gap of, okay, this is education, what's going on. People are going, look, either you're down with us or you're not, and that's it. There's no in between. There's no trying to educate people. There's no trying to make people understand how this goes. Or even we got and in some cases, I think we need to do this. Like, I'm fully on board with black people who tell white people, I'm not here to educate you about racism anymore. Like, honestly, no bullshit. I'm kind of past that myself. But at the same time, and this kind of goes into what I love that your first two episodes were dealing with education, because what we haven't seen, and I think people are starting to understand nowadays, is like the educational foundation in this country has literally been eroded away. And so where we're at now, because and this is across the board. I mean, people always make it seem like it's just the poor people and just, black people or just brown people, It's across the board. Education has been gutted. And so people aren't learning these things. They're not learning their own history. They're not learning history of this country. They're not learning, about civic action. They're not learning about how to be involved in politics. One of the great things that we're not taught that is one of those amazing things. You're given these requirements. If you're going through, K through 12, and even in college, none of those required classes you need to take are anything about personal finances.
Nope.
When I went to go buy my first house, if it wasn't for the fact that my dad had bought a house and had been through this process, and that I knew other people that had been through this process, and I would be going in there blind. Like and this goes back to what we were saying about how how you did all this overthinking for your show, and I'm saying overthinking to make it seem like it's bad. It's not a bad thing, but you were here heavily prepared. You did all your research. You looked things up. You watched videos. That's basically what I did to buy my first house. Right? I went in and I had to read. I read different things about different kinds of loans. My dad always was one of the people, because he had bought a house for himself and he had knew all this. He was like, get a fixed loan. Don't get that ARM shit. Get a fixed loan. You find out the interest rates are down. You do this. I had a guiding hand. Like I always tell people, I'm lucky. Where I'm at now, I'm lucky. I had parents that were privileged enough to give me a certain lifestyle and give me a certain education and certain things that when I went out in the world, I wasn't completely left alone. And then with that privilege, I was able to get things like access to internet. I was able to, be able to do my own research. I was able to, talk to certain people that had the skill sets I needed that I need to learn from to do that. But if you take some of these things away, you take away the fact that I had parents that had been through this and he taught me a little bit of financial literacy. Where do I learn that?
Yep.
It's not taught. It's one of the weirdest things. Like, and then as a whole society, we look down on people who don't know this stuff, even though it's crazy. Most of us don't know. Like, think about how many times we hear about celebrities blowing through their money, right? There's always that joke about, this guy he was getting $20 million a year. Now he's broke. How are they doing that? And people go, they need to be teaching these athletes about financial literacy. True. I agree with that. But Bob, how much in debt are you?
Exactly.
Like, you don't have financial literacy either. Like, we're taught to look down on these other people. I'm like, wait, you're doing the same thing. You were never taught yourself either. You get some dumb advice. Like, greatest joke we had when I was in I was an intern when I was in college. We went to work at IBM, and one of our mutual friends from me and some of the other interns was a guy I went to school with, and he was telling us about how he was going to be gaming the system. He had a tax guy, and what he did was he would put down 10 exceptions on his W-2. And I was just like, yeah, dude. He was like, because I'll put this down, and I'll get a ton of money back come tax time. I'm like, you're a single dude in college? This is an internship. I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to say no. I don't care how good your quote unquote tax guy is. He ain't that good. No, not going to do that. And I'm not going to go down that road. But there are so many things like that. Like, you learn from people who might be shady or who might not know themselves. And it's a cycle, right? You teach somebody else what you know, but you don't know anything. And it just keeps going. But there's so much of that, going on here. People don't know how to get involved. They don't know how to do these things. People want to change the system, which is great, but they don't have the basics of the education on how the system is even working. It's hard to dismantle a system if you don't know how it works, right? Because I try to tell people, even when I teach basics of organizing 101, the first thing is knowing how the process works currently, who makes the decisions. Before you try to overhaul and change things, you have to know how it works now, right? And so even as we're pushing and advocating, for changes or things like that, you have to know, what strategies, who's in power. You can't go to, who do you go to? It's a question I have. We're asking from a Brooklyn NAACP
Brooklyn NAACP perspective that I asked my criminal justice committee. I said, if right now in the precinct that covers, my neighborhood, I observed and knew that there were 2 officers that were just bad. We needed to get rid of them. What recourse do we have? What is the process to get rid of 2 of the officers in our neighborhood if we know they use excessive force or use racially charged language? What is the recourse? Do we go out and protest? That's our default. But what is the process even for that commander who knows or who gets those complaints? What does that commander, does that precinct captain even have an obligation to report to the community that they serve? How many of their officers have complaints against them, each quarter, each year, or or anything like that, right? So it's also about what information. So if you're talking about people don't want to, I have this conversation with my brother often, who is conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And from his perspective, is he wants limited government. He doesn't want the government involved in anything. From even his, he lives in an area in Pennsylvania, they don't even have trash pickup. And he's fine with it. He's like, nope, don't want it. I don't want them doing nothing. I want the market handle itself. He doesn't want government involved, in anything. And cool. But there may be some things that we collectively decide that we want to change and we do want different. In New York, we've decided, you know what? Everybody ain't going to be responsible enough to put their trash out.
Right.
So we want, we want regular trash pickup, because I might take my trash out, but dude across the street ain't, and that's going to affect my quality of life. So you know what? We're going to all pitch in terms of extra taxes, whatever pennies or whatever we're going to do, and we're going to have trash pickup. My brother and others who live in different areas are like, yeah, no, you don't take none of my money. We'll figure it out ourselves. Right. So, but again, that's part of self-governing. If you decide what you want, and it has to be sort of this collective thing. And that's what infuriates me even about the healthcare debate right now. Right. So we have collectively decided, and I'm sure any poll that you could look up that says people want healthcare, right? People want coverage and, things like that. Right. So we have decided collectively we want health coverage. And I'm sure the numbers are probably even more than that in terms of universal health coverage, but it's fighting up against, well, the system doesn't work like that. Well, if we collectively decided we want this, then the system needs to bend to the will of the people and not the other way around.
Right. Well, I think people also seem to understand when they say they don't. It's always funny to me when I hear people say they want limited government. You want limited government, but you want government to determine that it's limited government. You still want a government. That's still government. When you have a community, people coming together to self-govern, that's your government. That's still what you guys decided as a collective. We're not each individuals working on our own.
You're trying to give people facts, and people don't do well with facts.
Well, it's the thing that always drives me crazy when you have, one of the great things I love is when you guys started the last episode, when you guys, making sure everybody knows this is not Trump's budget, this is Paul Ryan's budget, right? Because that's what it is. I need people to understand that the Republicans and what they've been doing here goes far beyond Trump. He's just the puppet in the office right now. He
has the ball and he has the travel ban.
Right.
There is nothing else. Even from the healthcare debate, he himself has not specifically said, come out at a press conference, anything like that. These are the provisions, these are things, or these are what I advocate. He's left that all up to Congress, which, is having a strong, we're back to having a strong Congress and not having an executive sort of leave the charge on there. That's cool, right? But so this is left up to a Republican Congress to deal with. Because if he really wanted it, if he's really the boss, if he's really in charge, then why his ass ain't down there saying this is this is what I want, and this is what I got to push through?
Yeah, it's all Republicans all doing them. It's we want limited government.
Do that with healthcare,
right. Huh? No, he sat there. I always hate when people don't push back against the idea that Obama didn't work with Republicans. And I'm I watched when he sat in that 12-hour healthcare forum with Republicans as they came up with no legit response other than, well, what about health savings accounts? I love Paul Ryan's new thing, which is Well, it's not, or it's the Republican new thing now, because it's not just him parodying this now. It's not that 22 million people are going to be kicked off of health care. It's going to be 22 million people who aren't going to be forced to buy health care. And they're trying to make it seem like out of those 22 million people, the majority of them won't buy health care. But what they leave out of that is health care and health insurance works. Yeah, sure. If I'm healthy at this one moment right now and then, and you ask me, do I need health care? No, I'm healthy. But what happens tomorrow when I fall down and break my leg? What happens when I, if I, God forbid, get cancer or get some kind of disease I need cure for? Guess what I'm going to want then? I'm going to want fucking health care. And that's the thing that just drives me crazy about when Republicans talk about the healthcare bill. They make it, they refuse, and again, it goes back to the education thing. They're talking to idiots who refuse to understand like why everyone needs healthcare. Because at some point, you're going to need it. At some point, no matter how healthy you are, you might sprain your back. At some point, you might need, to get your teeth cleaned. Like at some point, you're going to need I don't know anybody who has never at any point in their lives gone to a doctor at some point. Shit happens. Happens if you're healthy as, the healthiest person in the world, but you get in a car accident. What happens then if you don't have health insurance? So this whole idea of, some of these people, they're not going to buy, we're not going to force them to buy something they don't need. Well, you're not being rational right now because you're assuming that all people won't need health care, which is a faulty premise from the get-go. Everyone needs health care. Yeah, you go to the young, dumb Republican dude, bro, who thinks, oh, no, bro, I don't need no health care. I'll just pay for it when I can. Yeah, because they're idiots, and they don't realize that because they do some dumb shit, they're going to eventually need health care. And then they're going to be like, oh, bro, I'm bankrupt now because of health care. Drives me crazy.
Or the new thing will just put all the people.
Hold on, you're breaking up real quick. Sorry.
All of the people with pre-existing conditions in one plan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The health insurance companies were like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not, come on. Yeah, I love the conversation you had. You had Professor Bill Spriggs on, and you had Dr. Julian Malveaux, and again, you just had those two go back and forth, and I love that Dr. Malveaux at the beginning, like Professor Spriggs are trying to keep it professional at the beginning, but I love that Dr. Malveaux kept jumping in like dumb white people. Like dumb. Yeah. You meant dumb white people. Like that shit just drew. I was losing my shit on my run when I heard that. She was saying, no. We're talking about dumb white people. It was like, and you see that he didn't want to. He wanted to co-sign it, but he didn't really want to co-sign it.
But I don't. Okay, all right.
Right. It's like he's like, well, that's one way of putting it. But that was a great pairing having them together.
Like you listen to the audio, the Civic patrons have like the full video, and like her facial expressions and like their back and forth added onto it takes it to a whole nother level.
That is great. But again, going back to what I was saying, like, and I think that what you're doing here, and I've always talked to you whenever we bring you on the show to talk about politics, stuff like that. I always love just hearing you talk about it because I think it's such an important piece here that people are missing. Like people so many times, and this is what was driving me crazy this last election. So many people had their eye on the prize of had their eye on what they considered to be the prize, and the prize was only the presidential election. And it would drive me crazy. I'm like, this is so much bigger than just politics, than just presidents. There's so many other things going on here, and it feels like people always try to go for the knockout punch with, all right, you know what? We're going to vote this way because, we're going to get change going here, and it starts at the top, it starts here. And I'm just like, it's not how it starts. Change starts from the bottom. Like it starts in the grassroots. And I love how you were talking about that, how the real battleground is really education, and how you can start off with, that parent who isn't happy with the education their child's getting, and they get involved in PTA or get involved in a local level, and next thing you know, they're rising up through the ranks, and next thing you know, they're mayor. You know, and that's like what I like about that is that's like the good version. The bad version of that is that's an idiot parent who rises up and nobody stops them, and they become the education secretary. And we get somebody like Betsy DeVos.
On the one hand, the continued reporting on what of the administration officials did or did not report their foreign meetings and on Russia and sort of all the things, those things are important. So I'm not saying that we need to see less of that, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are other issues and other things that are going on that require so much more attention, at least in the Justice Department and in education, that we're not really paying a lot of attention to.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. Like, this is an article that I literally I didn't comment when I first saw it because I was like, oh, this is covering things that are happening now is so hard because I literally think sometimes, oh, that's fake news. Oh, that's The Onion. Or that's somebody being satire, right? So it was an article that basically said that Betsy DeVos has met with men's rights groups. And I was just like, come on, that's going too far here, people. Calm the fuck. And then I started seeing it reported everywhere else. And I was just like, are you serious? She's met with, the Department of Education has scheduled meetings with sexual assault advocate groups such as National Women's Law Center, Know Your 9, I guess to begin with, Title 9, and End Rape on Campus. They've also reached out to SAVE, Stop Abuse in Violent Environments, Families Advocating for Campus Equality, and National Coalition for Men, a group that decides itself as a dedicated to the removal of harmful gender-based stereotypes, especially as they impact boys, men, their families, and those who love them. This is the education secretary, folks. Mm-hmm. This is also in addition to gutting protections, the civil rights. What is that department called in Department of Education? It's like civil
rights. It's the civil rights division in Department of Education.
Yeah, after gutting that, it's just ridiculous. But then you see that the way that you got here with Betsy DeVos, like this is stuff that's been boiling under the surface for years. I think that if there's, I remember during the Bush years when we did the insanity check, I talk about this all the time. The fight over textbooks in Texas. It was like a big fight between Texas and California, and it's because California was like, "Hey, listen, the stuff they're doing in Texas right now, Texas and California, we're two of the biggest, buyers of textbooks because just our size and the amount of people we have in our states. If we go with what Texas is doing here, folks, you're going to see a lot of crazy stuff because Texas was these creationists, or what were they called, intelligent design. There were a lot of those kind of board members, the religious right. They were literally coming in and they were getting on the ground level on the Board of Education. So they would become Board of Education members. They would make these controversial decisions, and these people would just rise up through the ranks. And you're now seeing, the fruits of their labor, if you will. And we literally have somebody who is completely unqualified to be an education secretary and is literally on the verge of making life so much harder for every marginalized person in the country when it comes to education and beyond that. Like, it's actually scary, but because of the noise, and again, I'm with you. I believe that it's insane we can't ignore what Trump and the Trump family, I'm just gonna put it as the family, has done, with lying on their SF-86s and their meetings with Russian operatives and things like that. Like, that's an important story, but there's so many things that are happening sneakily under the radar that are equally scary.
Yeah. And it's and it's connected to larger issues, right? So do you remember there's actually a documentary about this, about how across the country, conservatives elected conservative judges across the country. There's actually a documentary about that movement, and that it was a clearly defined campaign across the country to have more conservative folks on the bench, at the same time that they were that we began to see that talking point of activist judges.
Right. It's
Right.
really funny how conservatives do that, though, right? They say one thing while the other hand does the same thing, while condemning liberals in the left wings for doing what they're actually doing themselves. It's always it's masterful how they do that.
Right. So that is going on. At the same time, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
At the same time, that the investigation of the current administration is going on, you have to think. So part of, from a state level, the largest amount of money spent on the state level from state budgets is on education and healthcare. So if you look at your state budget, what percentage, the largest percentage that is spent, that states have to spend money on, is education and healthcare. So if we can get to a system where education is more private dollars are invested in education, that's less money that the individual states have to spend on education. That's more money that they can spend in other places. So when we're talking about that it's an assault on public education, this is what we're talking about. It's not just that people are just in general against charter schools. People are against, certain charter entities. But most people believe and think that public education, like, no one is making a profit off of public education. That's not what it's for, right? It's for, education. It's the greater good for the public. It benefits us all. It benefits our economy to have a strong public education system. Well, most people are trying to chip away how much government contributes to public education. How do you do that? You create these quote unquote private public partnerships. And then you also, if you can get and have more of a private entity providing the service of, quote, public education, then that's less money that you have to spend out of a state budget or out of a local budget.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's more money you can divert somewhere else.
Yeah. And
right. So it's tied to and that's why it's important to have this, not just, reading something at face value and seeing that, oh, it's the fight between charter versus public school. No, that's not the fight. The fight is whether or not we believe public education. Sorry, the baby.
No, that's fine. Sometimes Maximus, people hear Maximus in the background, so I can't say anything when there's actually a human baby that says something. So. And that's what I'm trying to educate people about, right? Is to look at the larger people. Do you, and ask yourself the fundamental question. One of the episodes we're doing in the fall during our back to school campaign is I'm doing this whole series and helping you determine what your political ideology is. Why do you say that you're a Democrat? Why do you say that you're liberal? Why do you say that you're Republican or conservative? Where does that come from? Does it come from I grew up in a conservative household, or my parents are Republican and therefore I am? I'm liberal, or my friends are liberal and this is why I am? Or just stopping to think about what are your political values? What do you believe? Do you believe everybody should have access to health care and that the government should contribute to it or provide access to it? Do you believe in public education? Do you believe in, in a full, Second Amendment that, with no limitation? And sort of taking people through that process of coming up before you read news stories, before you hear talking points and talking heads on, MSNBC and CNN, what do you believe? And then you should evaluate. At least that's what I do. And that's what, I was brought up to do. You determine what your political values are. And then you can hold them up against candidates
candidates and issues and decide for yourself, well, I'm going to support this candidate. They may not check the box on everything on my political values, but they are more swayed this way, or they will push my agenda or my values this way, right? And so if you have people equipped to make those independent decisions from a civic or a political standpoint, then the thought process begins to change, because then it's not just, wear my t-shirt because we're on the same team. It's like, why am I on your team? Like, do we have the same value? Like, why am I here?
Well, I think that's,
if you're not interest.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we don't do enough. Like that's one of the things that gets me, because you only really have these large political discussions whenever, this is one thing I always notice. The large political discussions online only happen when there's a national conversation, right? So it's only happening when it's presidential politics, or for some reason there's a senator race, or maybe there's a special election in a House district and it got national attention. That's the only time people have these conversations. And so when people start talking about, I can't vote for this person because they don't fit all my values, or they don't do this and they this, and you got to realize, like, well, what are your values though? And I think a lot of people don't know. 'Cause I always hear this argument on. And again, I believe that we need to fix our healthcare system. I don't know what that looks like. Now, people are like, well, do you support universal healthcare? And I'm like, okay, but what does that look like? What type of system? Because there's different types of universal healthcare systems. But I think so many people get caught up on the idea of just, I want universal healthcare for all, that's it. Single payer. What was a single payer? Like, do you even know how that works? And people just go, single payer, because that's what they heard. Or they associate single payer with all types of universal health care. It's like, we don't have those conversations. The people just go, either you're with universal health care, or you're with single payer, or you're not. And I'm like, you do need to educate people on what that means. You need to educate people on what that looks like. And if you don't educate them, because again, remember, you're not getting that education anywhere else. This isn't this isn't like, racial bias and racism in America, where it's just like, everybody knows what this shit is. Like, when white people go, well, I didn't know that was racist. Like, no, you knew that was racist. You're fucking lying. You're being put to shit. That's fine. People have somehow, they equate all types of education with that kind of stuff. Like, and I'm like, that's not how that works. Like, when it comes to politics and how the government works, especially in a country like America, where the U.S. is a unique situation, right? In that you have, a country that, basically stolen from indigenous people, was worked and grew up on the backs of, and was built up on the backs of stolen Africans. And you have a huge interconnected continent of states. Like, there's a lot, like, people, I think, oversimplify how to quote unquote fix the U.S. when I'm like, there's a lot going on here, folks, and there's a lot of people here. We have we have hundreds of millions of people in this country, and people go, well, all we got to do is get the people to rise up and do this and do that, and I'm like, we can't get people to agree on what sandwich to get. Have you ever tried to do that? Have you gone to our office and been like, what are we getting for lunch? Let's go for pizza. I can't eat pizza. We got to go with sandwiches. Well, I don't want the bread with the sandwiches. And it's just like, you can't get your office to agree on what to have for lunch. And we need to get, over 300 plus million people, which is more than that. Cause I think 300 million might be is that the number of people how many people voted in the last election? Was it like 100? I don't know. But it's a lot of fucking people in this country. And people just make it seem like they kind of yada yada. It's like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna rise up and have the revolution. Yada yada yada. Question mark. Profit. We're gonna universal healthcare. And I'm like, there's a lot of steps in between, folks. A lot of steps.
Into that,
right?
Yada yada yada.
Yeah, again, the education campaign. Like, looking back to, and I love how you just brought up the idea of the way some of these fights are framed misses the larger point. For years, the fight in Texas over the education stuff was framed as creationists versus people who believe in evolution. And that's what they framed the fight as. But as you can see it was way more than that. It was not just creationism and evolution. It was, do we teach slavery or do we teach it as they were immigrants? Like it's become so much. And then you see, it's been surreal for me to see some politicians now in Congress parroting some of the same things that were said years ago by some of these people that were getting voted into the Board of Education, or they're pushing some of these changes in textbooks. And you're seeing them say the same things. You're going, oh my God, it was a long game. You guys have been playing this game for long, and you got it. You did this, and that's kind of where you need to have the fight at. Like we need to talk about what's going on with Trump and keep an eye on that. But there's so many things going down here. I have this article from the Atlantic that came out last year, came out last September. But it's talking about as I said, the textbook that calls Mexicans lazy. Activists and teachers worked for years to get Mexican American studies into Texas schools, but they don't want the book the Board of Education set to endorse. So there's been this big, and we have a state like Texas. There was also Arizona. You have a large Latino American presence in the state. I think in some places they outnumber the white kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so it got to the point of, you should probably be teaching some kind of, Mexican American or, some history, just like you teach, air quotes, teach Black history and teach Native American history, right? And so they've been fighting to try to get these classes and this curriculum into school. And so basically what the Texas Board of Education did was like, fine, we'll do that. And they created a book, a curriculum for it. And it is horrendous. Apparently it had got no input from any Mexican Americans or anyone of Latino descent. No input into any of this stuff. I think the person who was in charge of putting it together was a person who didn't even want the stuff to happen. Let's see. New Mexico has been a majority Latino for some time. California just came so last year. In Arizona, Texas, the K-12 system recently changed to majority Latino, meaning the states are on their way. Beyond their legal language, both SB 1070 and HB 2281 had the impact of subverting Latinos and their culture, one by allowing police to racially profile students, racially profile residents, and the other by washing schools of any Chicano cultural emphasis. Diaz gave me one example of this, one that did not make the news. He calls it the Piñata Wars of 2012. So this article also goes into the idea of what some of these states are doing on the local level as well to kind of suppress Latino Americans. So they basically made a law in Harris County, Texas, where it outlawed piñatas in public parks.
What?
Yeah. They posted a big blue sign that said so. The county argued piñatas were messy, but the Diaz and to the activists and to the families, it was as if the county had banned birthday parties at the parks specifically for Mexican children. Yeah. And the guy, what is the guy's name? He's okay, keep saying his last name. Tony Diaz. He's an author and professor and radio host in Houston. He says that unlike Arizona, where Arizona is very blatant with some of their stuff. Because we've seen Arizona. Arizona can get Arizona's racism sometimes is perfect. It's just they're just out there. Like they rival some other places in the South. Like they're just they're so good. He's like Texas is more subtle with it. He's like Texas is so subtle with their discrimination that you have to even argue that it is discrimination, and you have to start questioning it because things like this are like, oh no, we're not banning Mexican culture. We're just saying that you can't have piñatas because it's too much to clean up the park. And that goes into some of these books. Like the book, let me see. They pulled out a page of it where it basically says that Mexicans are lazy in this. Like it basically says that. Let me see if I can find the actual.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Instead of coming and just like having input or coming up with different ways. It reminds me. I always go back to this example of them banning drumming in the park in Harlem.
Yeah.
Because it was too loud for the new resident.
But that's how it works, right? So here's the passages in the book. As foreigners came to develop Mexico on site, tensions grew between them and the Mexican population. Industrialists preferred to bring their own workers instead of using the Mexican laborers. This was partly due to the language gap. Managers did not know Spanish and needed to be able to communicate easily with their workers, which, again, just as an aside, you could just learn Spanish if you're going to, work in another country. You could do that, but okay. It was also partly due to the general lack of literacy and education among the Mexican populace. And textile, this is in the book they want to teach in schools, guys. In textile mills, this was not much of an issue, but in mining and oil sites, which demanded more technological know-how, it was. Stereotypically, Mexicans were viewed as lazy compared to European and American workers. Industrialists were very driven, competitive men who were always on clock and continually concerned about efficiency. They were used to their workers putting in a full day's work and quietly and obediently and respecting the rules, authority, and property. In contrast, Mexican laborers were not reared to put in a full day's work so vigorously. There was a cultural attitude of mañana, or tomorrow, when it became high gear production. When it came to high gear production, it was also traditional to skip work days on Mondays. Drinking on the job could be a problem. The result was that Mexican laborers were seen as inferior and kept in low-paying, unskilled jobs that did not provide a pathway upward. This is in a textbook.
No way.
This is in the textbook. And they have to fight to stop this. But this is where it comes. This, like you said, this is where the fight is. Like when we're looking at some of these other things, but I know Leslie from the Interracial John and a lot of people are focusing on the other stuff they did with black people with happy slaves. And all that kind of all those narratives. Like this is what they're doing. They're fighting these battles on the
taken care of.
Hmm?
That was the thing. They were well taken care of.
Yep. That's the thing that they do. This is where the fight is in education. It's like I said, it's been great. Like it was beyond, like even now today we see with who's the EPA guy? Is it the EPA? Yeah, EPA what, Pruitt? Whatever the guy is who's basically he's a climate change denier, right? And is trying to roll back all this stuff. Like again, this goes back to the idea of when they made the fight in Texas about creationist versus evolution. It's like that fight was all those years ago was basically about, do you accept science or not?
That's it. Let's start there. Someone tried to I tweeted something about I think it was either Earth Day or climate change during when the Trump administration announced something about the Paris Accord. And I was like, at this point, if you are denying climate change, it's the equivalent to me that you're saying the earth is flat. I'm now calling people who are denying climate, you're flat earthers. That's what you are to me. Because that's how backwards you sound. Right. So there's a difference. And they were like, oh, you make, partisan and thing. I was like, no. Let's start from the beginning, because we're not going to deny science. Right. We're not going to deny science. We have to come to the common thing of there is climate change. We can contribute, human beings and our productions can contribute to the change in climate and contribute to the deterioration of our air quality, of our water quality. Like, we need to start there. Now, it can be political in terms of how we address that, but it is not political. It is just simply scientific fact that human beings, our productions, or man-made things contribute to climate change and have an overall impact on our basics of air, water, right? Like, we have to start there. And what they're trying to do is to change that base level. I'm saying, no, well, how do we know this is happening? We know this is happening because of science. Like, we're not going to do, and that's the point where we have to assert and say, we're not going to do this, guys. We're not going to do this. There may be some change in terms of how much, because of scientific methods and studies and things like that, how much of an impact we have. But we can all agree, most sane people, Most people not trying to drive an agenda, most people not trying to worry about their bottom line in their pocketbooks can agree that we contribute to the change in like we need to start there. And then anytime, at least when I'm on with somebody or someone is debating me, I have to stop them. I have to stop you. We are not going to continue this conversation in front of people, in front of children, in front of we're not going to do this. And I think, and that's what bothers me about our political discourse now. That is the main thing that bothers me, is that we don't stop. We try to argue the point. It's like for some things, there is no arguing point.
There's no sides. There's either right or you're just you're wrong.
Now, how we address the climate change is definitely political.
Oh, absolutely. And it's up
what our balance of coal and solar and wind, what our balance in terms of what the state has, like all of that is political. I agree with you. And we need to come to the table and negotiate how we do all of that. Got it. Let's do it. But what we're not going to do is renegotiate facts.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to do that.
Well, so what they're doing now, and again, like I said, this all started years ago with this idea of giving these people, we're now to the part where people are like, how did we get here where we're designing? In fact, it's like years ago when you let people who literally were arguing that, oh, well, they're literally flat earthers going, well, when old boy built the Creation Museum out in, I think it was Kansas or Kentucky, he's like, oh no, we got dinosaurs beside human beings. You're just like, dude, facts. That didn't happen that way. But this is what happened. You let these people come in and literally run the Board of Education in Texas, which then trickles down into the textbooks, which then gets out to all these other people who learn this shit or don't learn the necessary thing because they have to make compromises now, right? So it's like, you can't do slaves, so we're just going to make them happy workers now. What they're doing in Florida now is, love this one, Florida State, oh, God damn it. I'm about to read this, and all of a sudden a pop-up comes up. Florida residents who view state-approved school textbooks as too liberal and some books in the school library as inappropriate have persuaded state lawmakers to push legislation that would make it easier for them to object to classroom materials they don't like. Today, parents are purposely blocked from being involved in their children's education, said Hamilton Boone, of a father who tried uncivilly to get the novel Beloved, a Pulitzer Prize-winning work, removed from his son's high school library in 2015. Under the proposed bill, HB 989 and SB 1210, students residents could more easily object to books, textbooks, and other classroom materials review volumes in school libraries, and if needed, argue their views before an unbiased, qualified hearing officer who could deem the items unsuitable and require them not be used. Now residents can protest material, but they take their complaint only to the local school board. We're getting closer to parents being able to burn books. Like this also goes down to the whole idea of sex education, right? Oh, well, no, you can't. No, I don't want my kid learning about sex education from no school. They don't need to learn that. Oh, so are you going to teach them? Well, I don't really want to give birds and the bee talk, right? It's like, that was the crazy thing. Like, I saw Teen Vogue did this amazing thing where they literally had an article on anal sex. And
okay, so let me tell you how. So I saw that. I was like, whoa.
Listen, I didn't read it because I was like, well, that's a little bit too, but think about it. Like I think it's either the writer who did it or somebody else came out and explained why he did it, and he was explaining it's like because he never learned this. He was a gay man. He was like, listen, never learned this. You're taught that this is evil and this is wrong. It's like I ended up having I had sex with a person ended up being HIV positive, and he was like, it was the most scared I've ever been in my life. Didn't know what was going on, and he was like, the people at the school, the people at the hospital explained everything to him, gave him the education he needed, but he was like, yo, so like that article, you might make you uncomfortable, you might not like it, but it's like this is stuff that needs to happen because these kids are doing this stuff. And would you rather them do it and be informed and know about their bodies and know about other people's bodies and know how this stuff works, versus them just going out there and figuring it out themselves? Like I said, the article, the story I told about how I didn't know, I was never taught about how to buy a house and how mortgages work.
Right.
It's crazy. I love watching Teen Titan Go, right? And it was amazing to me. Teen Titans Go actually gives a better education on capitalism and on how to buy a house than anything I've ever seen in school.
Really?
They did it. They did an episode on it was a Beast Boy end up like starting his own business that his own honey business that was bees. He basically changed the currency. So now everything in currency, instead of using money, he did everything in bees. And and I'm looking at this like he's literally explaining how to do economics. He's literally explaining how capitalism and everything works right now. And then they did an episode on because the Titans got money and Robin, he's a stickler. He was like, you know, we need to invest that money. We need to earn capital ourselves. We need to have our money work for us. So we're going to invest in buying property. And he goes through the entire process, and the entire time they're like, "Oh, we're rich." And I was like, "Oh, no, we got to get a loan. Oh, it's $100,000. We can't get that." Well, no, that's when we go out there and we get a mortgage. And they went through the entire process, and it's funny. But as an adult, I'm watching this going, that actually is. Kids are going to watch that and have more knowledge about how to buy a house than I did when I went to go buy my house. And it's crazy that you get it from a cartoon. And it's not taught in school. But it's the same thing with sex. It's like none of this stuff is taught because people, one, you have parents that are afraid to teach it themselves. Because one, I think a lot of these parents don't know themselves. Or they don't want to admit that they don't know and that they need to learn or that things have changed. That's what happens with when it comes to some of these books, some of these things when it comes to climate change and evolution, things like that. They're basically like, no, it's not what I was taught when I was growing up. And I'm like, yeah, well, you grew up in the 60s and, you know, black people weren't even real. You know, we weren't even real people.
And black people weren't even real.
Yeah, we weren't even real to you. Like, come on. Like, it's like, so how can you sit there and go, well, I don't know this. Like, I was seeing, there was a Fox News article, I think I was going to play. I'm not going to do that because we're going to get ready to get out of here soon. I'm going to play some other stuff, some more interesting stuff that I think LJ's going to like. But there was this, yeah, you're going to hate me for this. There was a, the Fox News, they were talking about the battle between California and Texas. And, you know, because it's Fox News, they of course are kind of going to take shots at California. So they're like, this is some of the stuff that California is doing because they're going to refuse they're battling with Texas. This is some of the stuff they want to do. There were things like being more gender neutral. So they were like, it's not a snowman anymore, it's a snow person. And people, and the host is like, that's ridiculous. I can't believe it. I'm like, well, actually, no, that makes sense. You know, it was things like that. I can't remember some of the other things they were doing, but it's all things that you look at now and going, oh, they're being progressive and trying to be more inclusive. Like it was, I know what it was. It was they weren't gonna, they're not gonna teach about Mount Rushmore anymore. And it was like because it might be, you know, offensive to Native Americans because you stolen Native American land and you're building on, you know, Native American land. So they're like, yeah, they're gonna change the way they teach about that. And they're like, oh, I can't believe that Mount Rushmore, it's a national monument. We're like, why would you do that? I'm like, because it's stolen land, like the entire U.S. is, but okay, whatever. But it's just people are so stuck in their ways, and they don't want to learn, and it's crazy.
They feel like it takes something away from them.
Yeah,
and because if you think about it in context, right? We often joke, and sometimes we do it online, and you may do this in person with friends, and we do the back in my day thing. When I went to school, when I went to college, when I used to play on the block, you know, we used to do that. And when people don't do those things anymore, you feel some sort of nostalgia, but you also feel some kind of thing as if it was the way that I was doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. So it's this thing I tell people that are volunteering or working on campaigns and they're trying to get people to vote a certain way. And I remind people often that it is very difficult. This is the reason why incumbents win so much more often, is because it's very difficult to convince someone that a choice that they made previously was wrong. And so if you think about it, people are thinking about their childhood or about their other things in a fondness, term. And so it's like, well, if now we're saying snow people was the way are you saying what I was taught was wrong? Mm-hmm. Like it's this human condition to go back. Was I wrong? I mean, and it's from the very mundane and very basic and, non-thing in terms of saying, snow people instead of snowman, Santa being black or white, or Jesus being black or white, or even something as controversial, at least in for people of color, beating your kids or not beating your kids, right? Because
Right.
then it means that what I experienced or what I did was wrong.
Yeah.
And instead of, well, this maybe just is a different way, in terms of thinking about, because if you think about it, you even have to check your own self sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Well, this is what I raised. I was raised on top ramen. We gonna eat top ramen. It was like, and that's way too much salt for you to be having.
Right.
Right. Like at some point, it's just like we've been eating, banana pudding every Sunday since I don't know what. Yeah, well, that's too much sugar.
Yeah.
Like, that, right? And so it's from the mundane even to the level of talking about people's political ideology or talking about people's economic habits, or probably, because then you have to recognize within yourself that something that you've been doing or a way that you were raised was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or needs to be altered. And so, on the one hand, I can understand that from a human level, on a basic level. But on the other hand, when it's also detrimental to you, at some point you have to realize, okay, I can't have people are dying from sugar. Like, I need to reduce this. This administration said one thing or said that they were going to, advocate for me, and they're not. I have to make a change, or else my life is at stake.
But people like to, what it is, and this is a crazy thing. You see it in movies all the time. People got to die with a lie. There are people. There are so many people out here who would rather die with their beliefs than change, and it's insane to think that, but it happens, and it's. I think that's one of the things that we're gonna have to get through. I think that's why I say I love Sunday Civics so much, because it is a conversation. I love seeing what you guys talk about on there, and it needs to happen, because there's so many things going on here, and I think sometimes these conversations need to be taken off of social media and Twitter. I mean, it's fun for jokes, but at some point it's like, hey guys, this is way deeper. Like again, I'm trying to move on from the election, right, and what happened. But it reminds me of so much that happened when we were talking about, people just, I just can't do the Hillary. I'm like, listen, it's so much, I don't like her either, but there's so much more than that. It's so much bigger than that. Like there's so many other things going on here that, your personal feelings on one person can't be enough to not see everything else that's going on here. Like if this goes down the way it is, we're in trouble. And I don't think a lot of people understood that.
And that's why I go back to the point of people identifying for themselves what their political ideology, their beliefs, and what they need from candidates before candidates come with them and with their own message.
Yeah, it's important.
Right. So if you know already, based upon the context that we're in, based upon the fights that need to happen, based upon the economy, based upon all of this, I need someone who's going to do X, Y, and Z. And while I may have political, views or different things on ABC, but my main priority is X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that's my bottom line. And then I have to evaluate. And so that's what I try to tell people. People often ask me the question of, the lesser of two evils question. And first, after I give them the thing of sometimes there is not a lesser of two evils, right? It's a very clear distinction. And evaluating that the right way. But then the other thing is that, remember, they are candidates, but they are still human beings. The same thing about how you pick your pastor or how you pick your church. Mm-hmm. It's the same way. They're still human beings at the end of the day. But based upon what they represent, both in terms of their personal values and their political values and what platform that they have, where can you get the best deal? You evaluate better than that when you go to the grocery store. You look on the shelf, and there are different brands of toilet tissue when you go to the store. You need them for one thing. The basic thing is wiping your ass. That's the basic, right? But each brand provides a different benefit for you wiping your ass. And other things may be important to you. It may be important to you to not leave tissue behind. Like, it may be important to you for it not to feel like paper. It may be important to you, the cost over something else. But at the end of the day, they still need to do the basic thing that you needed to do.
Can I just say, I hate to cut you off, but because would you say, I love the commercial with the bears though, because they get as close as possible to that issue. Because there's that one where the bear has like the toilet pieces stuck on his ass, and you're like, I know what you were doing there. I know what you were doing, but you can't show anybody. Is that one? And then the one with the trinkets in the bathroom that goes, Mr. Frog can't look away, can he though? He's just trying to get. It's like the thing that can't move is like he basically like they're watching you poop and they have to and they can't. Like those are my two favorite toilet paper commercials because it's like those are the only ones that capture how disgusting this product really is for you. I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off like that.
But it's real. It's like so that's how you have to evaluate those things, right? And it's because at the end of the day, you are picking human beings to represent you, whether they're going to represent you in Congress, represent you locally. But at the end of the day, you still have some say so, and you can't abandon your say so. You can't just give it willingly up to one person. You have to be active and participatory. Otherwise, you'll be fighting all your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh man, this has been great. So I'm gonna cut out the Great Moments of White Privilege this week. We're not gonna do that again this week.
Okay.
Oh no, you're not off the hook. You're not off the hook. And then we're gonna do our Black Woman shout out. Before then, because you've never done this before, we're doing my new segment, which is called "Do You Even Sci-Fi, Bro?" It's gonna be great this week. Yeah, you're not gonna be happy with what we end up going with here, because yeah. Anyway, play my music right now. Do you even sci-fi, bro? Here we go. So, on Do You Even Sci-Fi, Bro, we like to talk about different, stories that make me wonder if people ever, watch a sci-fi movie because these are horrible ideas. And I'm sorry, Eljoy, to do this to you, but this week we're bringing the sex robots back.
Oh God, are you kidding me?
I'm sorry. It's just the way. I'm sorry. I had it in the thing, and you just happen to be the guest that comes back on when we're back to this sex robots. I'm sorry.
Hey.
It wasn't on purpose. Sex robots promise revolutionary service, but also risks a study. Androids could offer valuable help to elderly and disabled, but may lead to increased objectification of women. You fucking think? Sex robots have the potential to provide a valuable service for people who are elderly, disabled, or find intercourse traumatic, but they also carry ethical risks, experts say. Sex robots that look like humans can already be bought or leased. Who is leasing a sex robot?
What?
Who is leasing a sex robot? Like, that's already okay. That's a discussion for another show. All right. For parties in the U.S. and plans for a cafe staffed by erotic cyborgs in Paddington, London have been mooted. Oh my God, that's just not a good idea. But they also raise concern about sex robots could increase the objectification of women, alter perceptions of consent, and be used to satisfy desires that would otherwise be illegal, which would then also lead to robots rising up and slaughtering us all because human beings, particularly men, are terrible. This is not a good idea. All right. So again, this article is going into all this stuff, but I actually found an article, and I'm gonna send it to you in Skype so you can see this because you need to see the pictures. Because the pictures are amazing, and it kind of goes into what we're talking about here, where you have this guy who's basically saying that his sex robot is better than his wife. You heard that.
Because it doesn't talk back, because it doesn't ask for things, because it doesn't ask you to do things.
Yeah, the article is basically, and I just sent it to you. The article is basically my sex robot. That's it. The title is my sex doll is better than my real wife. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you basically get this guy, and I love it because he basically says, after my wife gave birth.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That his wife had a baby. We stopped having sex, and I felt lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment he saw the sex doll, it was love at first sight.
Yeah. So you get all these kind of things. Like this is just but this happened like there was let me see. There was an article about in Japan where a guy did this. He brought his sex robot to he was bringing his sex robot or his sex doll to like a guy brings sex doll on train or something like that. Like he's like
Just to continue this, so this guy is like obviously obsessed. He talks about that how his daughter was freaked out because it reminded her of her Barbie doll, but now she's okay because they wear the same clothes. That he also takes the doll out on dates.
Mm-hmm.
And that he believes that Japanese women are cold-hearted because he's Japanese, because they don't do the same. This is just that is like more than borderline. That is like he needs to see somebody.
Yeah, so I'm gonna send you another one here.
Or if so, you need to go off and be by yourself and not involve your family and everybody in it.
Yeah, so this is another one. This is the guy who I think we might have talked about this on the show before. It was before we did do even Sci-Fi Bro. This is the guy who takes his hyper-realistic sex doll to the cinema with him and bought her a ticket.
What?
Yeah. This is exactly what happened one man in China did when he took his hyper-realistic sex doll along to see the new Warcraft movie. He even bought his girl a ticket. The happy couple were snapped outside of a Wanda cinema in the city of, I'm not even going to say that, in Eastern China. The images of them enjoying the movie have since gone viral on China social media. He literally has her in a wheelchair. And there's images of her literally sitting next to him in the theater. I am kind of mad because it looks like the movie is in 3D. I'm kind of disappointed that he has his 3D glasses on, but the robot, the sex doll does not.
I mean, if you're gonna go all the way,
I'm just saying if you're gonna go all the way. I mean, I feel like and that kind of not treating your sex doll as an equal is what's gonna have the sex robots rising up against us.
Yeah, because if I was real, you would have bought me 3D glasses.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which didn't think I could see.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
There's
the kind of shit that happens. That
I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Just want to say, just want to throw it out there. Just want to throw it out. All right. I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to think about if there's any black woman you want to shout out on your Black Woman shout out. I'll go first here. I have two. The first one from Tasha Chambers. She's has a website called the InnovateHers.com. And they're a small boutique communication agency that works with nonprofits that specializes in promoting equality and equity and justice. So check out their website. You can reach them there, and they have a really nice website. And again, I had it open. Let me see, because I had it open because they cover actually kind of undersell it. What all the stuff that they can do here, because people will say communications. But a lot goes into just, it's more than just communications. Let me see here. Where is... Oh, here it is. I actually had it open here. So they do PR. So they have communication plans, news releases, crisis management, executive speeches, media monitoring, community engagement. They do events. So they do theme conceptualization, venue selection, celebrity and talent contract negotiation, event styling, volunteer management, guest management. They do digital stuff, so they do content development and analytics, social listening, video production, social media marketing, and e-newsletters. And then they have marketing. They do marketing plans, collateral development, branding, copy editing, media buying, and logo development. So please go check them out. It's theinnovatehers.com. And again, there's another black woman business out here that you can go to. And again, if you have a business that you want us to spotlight on here and you want to eventually be on Secret Sauce with Latoya, emails at bwbusiness@mtrnetwork.net. And I have another one here from Ashanti that I should have emailed it to myself. I thought I did anyway. Here we go. Where is the email I emailed? Because she wanted to shout out. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so she Petty wanted to shout out. I want to give a Venus Ebony Star Wilms a black woman shout out. Venus is on the cusp of winning her 6th Wimbledon title at the year 20 in the game. This was sent before. She did lose today, but still not bad. She's still out here persevering because fuck that autoimmune disease and beating the brakes off of players young enough to be her daughter at this point. Not only is she a consummate champion, she's going down in history for closing the pay gap between men's and women's prize money earnings of majors. Venus is the goat of goats, and she's my black woman shout out. Also, another reason why I want to read this out there, want to say shout out to her also, and fuck the police for that bullshit they pulled on her. You heard about that, right?
No.
So basically, there's all this social media buzz about the police saying that Venus was behind the wheel and was responsible for this old person dying. It was a car accident and this old man died. No. And the police came out and was like, it looks like, well, and it was a weird statement for the police because the police said that while she was the cause of this person's death, even though she was not doing anything legally wrong in the car. And it was weird by the statement they put out, and I was like, this is weird. And then a video came out about what happened, and no, Venus, she was behind the wheel of the car, but she was in an intersection. She had the right of way. So she wasn't at fault at all. But the police had put out a statement that kind of made it seem like she was responsible for this person's death when that was anything but the case. And it was another one of those things. Just like, are you fucking serious right now? So, yeah. So I just wanted, again, another reason why to shout her out and say fuck the police on that one, because it was the most. I won't say the most because the police do some really irresponsible shit when it comes to black people. So I can't even say that statement, unfortunately. But it was very, very irresponsible of them because they had a lot of people, obviously, because again, black woman was getting hate at her for causing the death of this. I'm pretty sure the person was white, calling the death of this old white person, and it turns out that she wasn't at fault at all. Yeah, so go figure.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone you want to shout out for your black woman shout out?
You know what? I'm gonna keep it at home, and I'm gonna do my black woman shout out to June.
I was hoping you'd do that.
June is not only, you hear her voice on the Sunday Civics podcast, but she's actually, is my assistant. Yeah. And has been for the past 2 months, and my life is much better for it. So I'm gonna give my black woman shout out, to an independent contractor. June does independent, administrative services. And so she's my assistant, and shout out to her.
Yeah, no, I was hoping you shout out June because, like I said, I was listening to she was cracking me up as basically I felt like she was gonna she asked you what shop this was, right? And she was gonna go down there, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Okay, you could just hear when you guys were talking about the store and what they did. She seemed incensed. She was like, "Wait, they did what now? Oh, wait,
yeah.
What?
June is no nonsense,
right?" She was like, "Oh, the police would have been involved," and I believed her.
I have two problems of my overwork thing. Whatever, I can stay in the office really late or stay working really late. Which this week I pulled an all-nighter. Do you remember all-nighters? I was in my office until 5 a.m. One day this week, because I launched a campaign. But and then I forget to eat. So June, whether or not she's working with me a day or not, texts me and asks, "Good morning. Have you eaten yet? If not, please do so now." So she's on her game.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Can you please tell everyone where and how they can get Sunday Civics? And I'm going to ask all my people to please go out there and subscribe to the show. Like I said, I really didn't have notes for this episode or show notes because I knew that I wanted to talk to you about. We haven't really been talking about politics the last couple of weeks on the Insanity Check. So I was like, bringing El Joy on, we'll have some political discussions in that context. And so I really want people to check out Sunday Civics. I had the same feeling about your show that I did when Leslie and Marissa started Safety Pin Box. Like, what you're doing over there with Sunday Civics is a much needed voice and a much needed service. And I think I'm really rooting for it to blow up because I think people really need to hear this stuff.
Well, thank you very much. So you can go to sundaycivics.org. And, we are on every podcast, whether you listen on an Android or on an iPhone, we're on in the Apple Store, we're on Google Play, we have an RSS feed. So you can listen on the website. So however you want to listen to the show, you can listen to the show and download the episodes. Episodes come every other Sunday. So that's when you can get new episodes. So there'll be new episodes dropping this Sunday. So if you're listening to this, you can check that out. And then also you can become a Civic patron. That means you've either donated once to the show or become a monthly subscriber via Patreon. And then you actually get the videos when we do in-person interviews. The audio is on the feed and, available, and it's edited down, but the full video of the interview. So if you, may have listened to the audio of the two economists, there's actually a video that goes on in that Civic patrons have access to on our YouTube channel. So you can go and check that out there. And you can see video clips on our YouTube channel as well. So sundaycivics.org, it has the links to everywhere you need to go to catch up with the show. And to donate, which is really great because I'm financing this myself right now. So, so whatever, we have a lot of people that have, contributed 3 and 5 and 10 and 20. And we certainly appreciate that. But so, and we have, a good team. It's myself and June. And we have 2 wonderful interns. I have a high school junior and a college junior and a high school senior. And those girls are bad, man. They did the show notes and the guide and interviews and everything for the identity politics episode. So you definitely want to check that out. So visit us at sundaycivics.org.
Awesome. Yeah, and please check them out. It's really great work that's being done over there. So, again, this is the Insanity Check. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music. Again, get the MTR Premium stuff. Go to mtrpremium.net. You can also go to our store. We're going to have new designs coming in soon. I'm changing the design a little bit slightly on the President Villain shirt. I'm going to make it a little bit darker so you can actually see the basically the head of Lex Luthor on the cover of that. And we're going to be adding in a new variant of our list shirt that has we're going to have different MTR logos on it, so you can just pick which one you want to have on there. So we'll have different variants of that shirt out there depending on which one you want to get. And but again, go to store.mtrnetwork.net. Again, all of that stuff helps us. What we're going to be doing like next week when we go out to San Diego. Like I got to give a special shout out to Shanna and Phenom for what they're doing and how they're helping to get this stuff together. We're hopefully the rooms that we're getting this year are going to be even better than last year, and we'll have plenty of footage stuff coming out. Again, there's going to be the last Insanity Check in July. We're not going to have another Insanity Check until August. But we'll have plenty of other content coming out. I know Deepalm's coming soon with a unanimous decision. There might be a Super Tuesday recap coming in to kind of recap San Diego Comic-Con. And I haven't decided yet, but the next Peter Parker Character Corner might be end of this month. Or we might do something else. We might take a break and do another Character Corner to break up the Peter Parker stuff, because it's going to be a long one. We've already done like two episodes on him. You said what now?
We just went to see that last night.
Oh, do you like it?
Yeah. Well, and Spider-Man is Miles's favorite superhero. He has a tattoo of him. So we definitly had to go make that happen. Yeah,
I was going to ask. I was asking if you liked it, but then I had to make sure he liked it, because I remember so before I did the little short interview with Eljoy last week. Miles got on, and he had some words about my feeling about some of the Spider-Man movies, but it was good. But I told him, I was like, no, man, trust me, you're gonna
words for you, because he listens to your podcast at the gym.
Yeah, I know. And so it's like every now and then I got to remember. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna get. He's gonna say something to Eljoy, and then Eljoy's gonna be like, Miles is kind of angry at you right now.
And and then he gets on the phone and act like I'm making him say stuff. You remember he was like, "What
Yeah.
am I? What am I supposed to say? What am I mad?"
Right.
Like he wasn't like giving me words like me. I'm gonna see you at work the next day. He was like, "You tell him," and I was like, "Well, you can tell him yourself."
Right. Wait, I ain't saying anything. No, it's fine.
Sure it is.
But yeah, and again, like I said, if you have any problems with the feeds, if you're using the podcast feed from Apple, I suggest using something else. RSS Radio works really well. Hey, guess what? Stitcher's back, and it's working actually pretty well for us. And so all the shows are back on Stitcher. They're all up there. So if somehow you can't, like, I know some places you can't get Apple, you can't get some of these other things, but Stitcher works. Stitcher's fine. Also, all the shows except for the premium ones are on YouTube as well. You can find us on YouTube. MTR Network is the feed there. So yeah, folks. Again, thank you guys very much, and stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff coming out from San Diego Comic-Con that will be coming up when we go out there next week. And actually, this weekend is D23. So I've been checking my feed, and a lot of stuff is also dropped from D23 this weekend. So stay tuned, folks. So again, thank you guys very much for listening. And LJ, thank you very much for joining me. Till next time, we are out of here. Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. Here's the thing. I'm always surprised when people like you say you want to be on the show. Like this time you asked. Like Jim was like, "Hey, LJ would like to be." I'm like, "Wait, I'm not special. How else is happening?" Like, LJ wants to. She wants to be on my show. Like, so, yeah, I'll have her. Yeah, I'll clear out my schedule. I'll knock kids over and stuff. So, but no, thank you very much for being on. So, again, folks, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, we're out of here. Peace.